Andre, take it away.
Well, it's always a pleasure to hear how the Lord is working through you in our community, in your various ministries, and how you're challenged, because we are all certainly challenged. COVID has still had a detrimental effect on so many businesses and services and resources that have been closed up. I'm hearing that there's another round of some other form of COVID going around, and we're going to have to reintroduce regimens here at work. And
Hmm.
yeah, it seems like the never-ending story. However, I really wanted to focus on a few things. I want to mention in passing an organization that I came across out of necessity this past few months called Hidden Harvest. This is an organization that also is hurting for volunteers. And I mention this because some of you will have people who have ready hands. And Hidden Harvest is an organization that goes around the city to the residences of various people who may have apple trees or cherry trees or gardens or berry bushes that they cannot harvest themselves.
Mhm.
And so Hidden Harvest, what they do is they go and they harvest for you. They give you a quarter of what they take away. A quarter goes directly into the food banks. A quarter goes to those who are harvesting, and a quarter goes to Hidden Harvest for processing for other charity fundraising
Wow.
events and that sort of thing. So this sounds like an amazing organization. I unfortunately connected with them a little bit late, so I'm not able to tap into their services for Liberty House. My problem at Liberty House is we have this huge apple tree, and they're not exactly premium apples, but they can certainly be prepared and used for pie fillings and applesauce and all that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, most of them are hitting the ground and getting, mauled by the hordes of rabbits and squirrels and chipmunks and
Wasps.
birds and foxes and all the things we have in our neighborhood in Nepean. It's amazing. I've never seen so much animal life in a residential area. But anyway, so I've been literally throwing out hundreds of pounds of apples over the last few weeks. And even if I had a farmer that would feed them to their pigs, I would think that would be just a wonderful way to, recycle that stuff and get it back into the soil, through some sort of feed process. But anyway, I just wanted to mention Hidden Harvest in case, there's an opportunity out there for some folks who are looking for something to do with their hands while they're waiting for work, right? Maybe go and, put that on your resume. That never hurts, Mr. Westbrook, to have something that you're putting in the community. I'm looking forward to hearing from your guys. My bosses tell me that we need all kinds of folks. So if you don't have a contact for us, I think you do. Keep hammering away with your guys. Keep sending them over. If they can handle a grinder or any kind of manual labor in a steel plant, men or women, I don't care. If you got welding experience, that would be fantastic. We're not going to run out of an opportunity anytime soon. So just, whatever you can find for sure. But yeah, the house right now is full. We have a capacity for 5 men, and it's full as of this week.
Excellent.
We've had a few people come and go for various reasons. Mostly, I think the guys that don't make it mostly just, they prefer their poison over the mercy and the grace of God, and that's too bad. It's a sad thing. But one of the big lessons that I've been learning over this past year, it's been a year now at New Connections for me. It's my first year there, and I'm looking forward to getting together with the board and all of our mentors and sitting down and doing a review and maybe recasting the vision a little bit and how we might grow. We're in a different world, and we can't do things the way we've done them in the past. So I'm entertaining a few things, and we'll see what happens with that. But you know, in any kind of organization, especially when it comes to a home for guys who are coming out of prison or out of rehab centers, or out of any kind of really problematic situation, there tends to be an abundance of rules and regulations and things that must be, kept in place in order to keep order, right? And while that is true and it's necessary to be orderly, I found over this past year that many of these guys do better being served with mercy and grace. Mercy triumphs over judgment is the thing that I'm discovering, and I think that if I can continue to work with these guys, we had a meeting last week where the 5 of these guys met for the first time, and there was a real sense of connection and identification across the table with each other, a commonality in their goal to want to live a changed life in the context of living out the Christian faith. And this has just been a marvelous turnaround for the house to see this collective, and that's just a strong sense of wanting to do things in Christ, because nothing else has ever worked. And so I'm looking forward. I'm excited to see how these guys have been growing. We have one guy who's been there since I've been there, and another guy who started in January, and then the other 3 started in the last week. So they all have intense anger issues. 3 of them do, and they need to work their programs. They're in counseling, and they're doing their AA stuff. We have a fellow who is waiting for a judge's decision as to whether or not he goes back to see you, Marvin, over at OCDC. He was on a conditional release, and he had to go to Teen Challenge and didn't make it there. He was potentially out on the street. That's something I want to address, actually, just briefly. A lot of these guys that are released, I'm not sure. I'm thinking now along the lines of provincial offenders. It seems to me that there's not a lot of beds available. So sometimes these guys are released on, it may be a conditional sentence, or it may be a probationary sentence. It might have various conditions that require various levels of supervision. So we had a fellow who he was released, and he was to be at this address with this Teen Challenge program, and he couldn't leave without the permission of his probation officer. And unfortunately, his probation officer was away when he was told he had to leave, because he wasn't compliant with the program consistently. And he landed down at my place last week ago, Friday now, and at Liberty House. He tried to go to the police station because he knew he was in breach of his conditions, and they turned him away, saying it wasn't a motel. So we have this guy who wants to do the right thing, and he wants the support, but there was just a few cracks that he managed to fall through. Now, to be fair, when it comes to offenders under conditions, the onus is always on them to make sure that their probation or parole officer is aware of everything they're doing. And in this case, that fell through because she wasn't available. She was on vacation, and her voice message said she was in meetings, and so he was waiting for a call back, and he had no choice. He had to leave, so he was potentially on the street. And I thought, no, you know what, that can't go. So we've had him in now, and we're waiting for a decision. He has to see a new probation officer tomorrow, and then he may or may not be allowed to continue at Liberty House for the remainder. He has, I think, 5 months left in his sentence. And at every point that I think the courts can leave a fellow in the community rather than in jail without any considerable risk to the community, it's always better. It's always better. But there isn't a lot of places, shelters are full, they can't be on the street. Although I think now I've seen probation orders where guys on the street are given conditional sentences as well. I'm going to say probably for minor crimes. But it's been an interesting challenge to go through the system and find out. I was making phone calls in the weekend trying to find out who I could contact in corrections concerning this fellow. And the only person I got through to was somebody from a monitoring services. I don't know if that sounds familiar, Marvin. Monitoring services, I think, has to do with the federal parolees, not probationary or provincial parolees. So, and he couldn't help me because I didn't have an FPS number. So, but the whole thing is that we work in systems, right, with men who are broken, were broken before they went into the system, may or may not be, recovering, may or may not be learning what they need to learn to live a different life. But with our systems, we somehow or another, we have to be able to open our hearts and offer grace and offer mercy and set the judgment aside, no matter what the system chooses to do, right? I was talking to some fellows from Protectors of Youth. They're a motorcycle club that surround victims of abuse, and they were going on Saturday. They were going to a little girl's house who'd been abused by a man down the street who'd just been released, and this is a fellow who doesn't apparently have the benefits of COSA, but he certainly has the intimidation of a motorcycle club all circled around this girl's house. I don't know if he's repentant or not, but I tried to talk to the guys about the different measures that need to be in place when it comes to protecting perpetrators as much as victims. We don't want more victims. We don't solve that problem by sending perpetrators into hiding. That's always an issue. Yet at the same time, we have to be able to balance the safety of the people around us.
Andre, I have to cut you off here. We're coming to the end of our time.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Anyway, all to say, God is doing great things. The house is really busy. There's some neat things going on in the community. Check out Hidden Harvest. God bless you all.
I hate to have done that to you, Andre.
No worries. All good.